And I think the problem with so much modern media is how bombarded we are constantly. It's the kind of MTV, flash in your face, constant music.
Oh, he left.
A lot of drama together, and that really is constant music,
which is constantly telling you what you should feel, like really clearly, and it's like being kind of beaten up by the music sometimes.
And when you read a lot of reviews of Dear Esther, a lot of people say they had this time to think and to interpret, and that was one of their favourite things, that they placed themselves so directly into the game, and it's their experience. And I think
so there's a lot of places in the game where you see a lot of strange things, and this is very deliberate. One of the things we wanted to do is just kind of like not spoon feed the player every little piece of story. We kind of just, some things are literally just in there to just kind of let you think and let you decide on whatever you want to bring to the story yourself. So there's, it's kind of like I approached it like an impressionist painting, where you've got like this kind of very vague outline of things, but if you stare at it enough, you can kind of like fill in the spaces, and kind of the image comes together on its own. So a lot of these kind of strange pieces of geography and stuff, that's really kind of deliberate in some ways, just to kind of keep the player's mind open and kind of bring their own interpretations of the story through that.
Okay, I got everything in that one. Oh, the French vanilla creamer? You still got that?
when I was originally thinking about how to write music for the game, I suddenly realised that you don't see anybody in the game, and the most important character as such is the island itself. So one of the things that I did with the music was to write the island as if she or he were a character in its own right. And that's really important, I think, that you are going through this space and actually it's completely devoid of people, but the music in a way populates the island, and that the voice of the island speaks to you through the music.
Which is interesting, because I think that's really come on in terms of later games we've done, that sowed the seeds for the way in which we approach music in Rapture, where it was very specifically the voice of characters. The Machine for Pigs as well, where the music was about being Lily's voice in the game, Lily's representation in the game. So it's interesting how, looking back on Esther, a lot of those kind of ideas were tried out here that then came on to take other forms in stuff we've done since.
hell is going on in here? What are you doing, stupid? So this ain't too big a spoon, is it? Oh my God. God almighty, you in here. There's your coffee, Dixie. Take a sip. Best coffee in town. Ain't getting no better than that. Oh, I need some sugar in mine. What's that? I found it just now. I'll bring you some in. I know, right? One of the damn fucking cars. I ain't had coffee in so long, I bet it's gonna be weird tasting to me. Come on, get in here, girls. That's a good girl. That's a good girl. Come on, Smokey, darling. There you go. Get here with Daddy. Oh, come on. Come on, Angel. Really? Come on, kittens. Get in here. Oh, hey. I hate when they do that stupid shit. Mercy. Whew. Beautiful game. You said a while back that they had another game like Dear Esther, Dixie, somewhere? I am. I'm just wondering.
Let's do it. We're gonna address the elephant in the room, the very, very slow-moving elephant in the room. So this might be a longer conversation because it kind of fits with that. So Esther was the first of the what are now called walking simulators. And
Right.
It was really interesting that for us it didn't feel that weird to have a game that was slower than normal, where actually there was lots of time to just walk around and think and look at things. And it was amazing at the time how this was seen as completely revolutionary. And it's really interesting. And it's amazing to see how many other games have kind of like taken it on board. For me, it came from, I didn't see it as being
Michael, you still there?
Where very little happened, where you thought about what you were doing. For me, it was kind of interesting that you could play some of the best moments in Doom are the bits where nothing's happening and you're just doing it, or system. The radio mast in Dear Esther is obviously, there is a really important kind of design feature as well as its place within the story. And that, I think, came from, it's really interesting, it being a hard in the Citadel.
Wow!
It tells you how far you are.
Damn, you've been around Dixie too much.
Closer to the Citadel, can I see it? And it lets you know how near you are to the end of the game. And it was really important because Esther's so open in a way, and because there isn't this, you're not using kind of shootouts or kind of gating it with combat encounters to kind of constantly keep you moving. But it was really, really important that you always had that focal point of going, I know exactly from the beginning of the game.
Locked his ass out of a fucking house. That's funny as shit.
Where the game's going to end up. And you know that sooner or later you're going to be either at the base of that thing or climbing that thing. And it's always there, that red line.
Yeah, but you know how to get back in. He can't get in his house at all. He touches anything on it, it fucking goes off.
Like any of the other colours in the game, immediately tells you as a player, this is what the shape of this thing is going to be. This is where I'm going. This gives me a purpose, even if the sort of moment by moment is a bit...
So something you'll notice as you look around the environment is, you know, from a distance you see the landscape. It's kind of a beautiful place in some ways, but something I wanted to bring to the game was that there's this second layer beneath the surface. Whereas if you look at things closely, you see that the actual island itself.
You ever want to get trophies quick? I'll tell you what, this is the game to go to, Mike.
Rotten. You know, everywhere you look,
Christian and everyone that watches me.
Surface, it has this layer of filth on it, and it's kind of been put in there just to kind of emphasize further that this island's a really unpleasant place to live. It's like if you scratch the surface, you see like just how corrupt this island is.
I went over one crate like 15 times on the crew, and I didn't get it checked off for like 15 times until it finally did. Made me so mad, but I got rich. Are there any blue cops behind you? Okay, because if you see any blue cops, that means that you're being chased by real people.
And it was basically Jess and I on a casting website, just listening to people's show reels and finding what's the voice of this thing. And there was never any question about Nigel. I think we heard his show reel for the first time around. It's probably been listened to sort of 30 or 40 actors. And we started listening to his show reel and just both looked at each other and went, that's it, that's him. And it was amazing when Nigel came in. We had, I think, a day and a half to do the whole thing. And he just did that amazing thing that really, really great actors did. If he just walked in, got in front of the microphone, and more or less did the entire thing in one take. And we did hardly any retakes on anything. It just felt like his instinct for the character in the game was so strong that he just, without virtually any direction, just came in and just got it. And one of the hardest things with the voiceover that we did was when we went from the mod, which had 3 potential narrative units per queue, to 4 potential narrative units per queue, was not only finding new bits of writing that kind of complemented and played off what was there in the original mod, but for Nigel to come back in, nearly 5 years later, and to just re-find that voice in exactly the same way and deliver it in a way that fitted in and complemented it was a real testament to his ability as an actor, I think. That apart from we had spent quite a lot of time trying to make the sound actually sound the same in terms of mic placement and things like that, but in terms of the actual...
So this hole in the ground was kind of a difficult thing in some ways. It's a bit of a challenging aspect of the game. Because, yeah. In some ways, it kind of like, I think for me, we wanted to have this kind of
oh shit
here. And I wanted the player to be able to actually go as close as possible and like look over the edge and you know, kind of have this feeling of
I found the hole
and stuff. But the other issue that we faced was like, what happens if the player just jumps into the hole? Like, yeah. we have no real death in the game, and from a design point of view, Dan, I mean, I don't know what you...
It was really hard because, you know, it was a game where we couldn't let the player die. We didn't want to have respawns, but we had to handle the fact that there would be both accidents where the player would fall off a cliff or something, but also the deliberate urges of the player. Yeah. You know, the first thing you're going to do is go, great, there's an ocean, how far out can I go? Or there's a cliff that's really high, can I jump off it? And how do you have death in a game where you can't have the player die? Because if the player starts breaking up the experience by dying and reloading, then you're in you start breaking the experience a lot. So,
yeah, I mean, we didn't want to also have like artificial boundaries, you know, where it's like an invisible wall. Like if you take a look through the game, you'll never see a place where you think you can get to, but you can't. There's always some kind of actual natural boundary or man-made boundary. So, yeah, that was the other thing. We didn't really want to create this invisible wall around this thing. So,
it kind of, the whole drove the way in which that sort of the very weird audio visual, probably one of the most dreamlike bits in the game, where if you do die and you get the kind of the heartbeat and the strange, I think in a lot of ways, if we hadn't had the hole there, and we hadn't had a place where we go, right, players will jump in this hole, we have to start from that basis, they will throw themselves down this hole, it kind of gave us the impetus to really focus on it. And I think the stuff like the drowning deaths and the cliff deaths are strong because the hole was there, and I'm not sure if the hole hadn't been there, whether or not we'd have arrived at that way of handling it, which I'm really proud of. I think it's a really incredibly creative, interesting way of handling a player going out of bounds and of actually being able to reset the game when the player's basically done something you ideally wouldn't want them to do.
That's what it is. It's really good, too.
One of the really important jobs of a composer, I think, is to provide the player or the listener with different emotional tones and states. And up until this point in the game,
Mike doesn't like coffee.
Very sparse, very intimate, and very isolating in a way. But
he's a big Texan that likes tea.
A magnificent place, and what I wanted to do at this point, for the first time in the game, is to create something that was really epic. So we go from that shifting scale where it's very intimate and small, to suddenly realising that this is an extraordinary and magical place to be, as well as a difficult and quite sad and melancholic place to be. So the string players were instructed at this point.
Oh my goodness, it's a kitty cat!
With much more vibrato.
It's Palomino.
Played in a very sort of Scottish.
What are you doing, Palomino?
No vibrato, very plain playing. But this was a really beautiful cue to write, actually, because that has that scale. You suddenly realise that the island is really big, and you have this beautiful vista, and the music then shifts, so the player can actually, just for a moment, I think, enjoy being where they are.
Yeah, I think that's it. Can I?
Don't forget the what?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is actually one of my favourite parts of the game.
I ain't giving that damn thing nothing right now. I'll give it later.
Perfectly.
The fuck she need one for anyway? She ain't done nothing cool.
Music,
she sits around on her ass.
As Jess said, you've got the landscape, which is kind of like this big open space. You've got all the little
no, I'll do that.
Put into the detail of the environment, like the movement. There's leaves blowing around. There's the clouds in the sky. There's the mist rising off of the grass. And then you've got Dan's voiceover coming in there, and I think it's just like all of these elements coming together and just in perfect synergy, and just it really brings
fucking crazy ass coffee. I ain't had coffee so long. I put a teaspoon in it. See, I thought this was a teaspoon. It's not. It's fucking. It's like a goddamn serving spoon. Whew, what a drink it was.
Inside the bothy, there is a randomised chance that you can find an ultrasound picture on the table, and I think it's...
I don't know, fucking... It's,
instance of randomisation in the game that is like...
It's,
because
Aldi's coffee.
The idea that Esther was pregnant when she died changes everything emotionally about how you understand the story. I'm not saying you don't care...
Smithfield,
so as you leave
something like that, yeah.
Seagull takes off, that's the one jump scare in the game, which is kind of interesting because when we made it, we kind of had
it's welfare coffee, bitch.
There was no intention, really. We kind of wanted this dreamy, hallucinatory type thing. But when it came out, people started coming back and saying, this game's absolutely terrifying. I was really frightened. And that was really amazing. And I think it's because nothing happens. We're so trained in games to go, there's stimulus all the time. But if nothing happens, you're waiting for something to happen. And kind of,
what's Folgers?
Go back to again and again the whole sequence in Dead Space 2 when you go back to the Ishimura, and it's
I like the other one back in the day.
For what feels like hours, but it's probably only about 15 minutes. Nothing happens and no morph comes at you, and it's absolutely terrifying because it's just this space and you're just left in it. So I think the kind of the bird here is really interesting because it can actually.
You very well may have to order it somewhere.
That was part of why people were saying that the game was really scary.
So one of the things that influenced the visuals quite a lot was the tech limitations at the time, and also the kind of themes of the game. Like tech-wise, we were never ever gonna kind of achieve photorealism, and I think that was a good thing. I mean, really,
you're gonna build a what?
It made us sort of stretch out into other areas, and for me as an artist, it kind of made me think a little bit more creatively. I did a few tests at the beginning, and when I realized this wasn't possible, I kind of went back and I kind of did some research on different styles. And one
it's probably gonna be shit.
Me was this kind of
like all the other new remake movies are,
where it's kind of like there's just enough shape and color.
Oh.
We should probably talk about some of the inspiration.
So I guess another 30 years we'll get Top Gun 3.
A strict, you don't talk about Stalker kind of thing. And when Rob and I started talking, I think one of the first things that we kind of discovered was how much we're both obsessed with Stalker. And I think that was one of the major things behind it in terms of when people talk about game inspirations. I mean,
so Tom Cruise will be the main guy. Tom Cruise's son will be one of the pilots. He'll get killed. There'll be a big drama about it. So on, so on.
This incredible space that you didn't understand that simultaneously.
Then come to find out, Iceman had a kid. He's in there with Tom Cruise's son, and it becomes Tom Cruise the next generation.
Place that you feel rather
Top Gun, fully loaded.
That was like really
some bullshit like that. I don't know. I just came up with that movie.
This is a space that is about feeling, not thinking.
Yeah, I think the movies in particular. I think I hadn't watched the movies. I'd read the book and I played the game. But when I watched the movie, it kind of all made sense to me, like why I like the game so much and why
I never liked it. I always liked Maxwell House as my favorite.
Just like every shot is like a painting. It's like every shot has its.
I'll feel your butt to the brick.
There's very little dialogue in the actual movie itself.
Sorry, I forgot. I was on YouTube.
Shots. And each shot is amazingly beautiful.
Fill her butt with brim. Fill it to the brim with the brim.
Like trying to bring some of that through into the environments. So that is definitely something I'm going to struggle not to talk about. But the game as well. I'd say the actual Stalker game is...
Play her like a skunk and fill her full of spunk. La la.
So that to me is a big part of it. One of the more interesting and challenging things to do in the
you made a new one since then.
Create an emotional connection with the player. With the music, it's very strong, and the dialogue can kind of help you to feel what the character's feeling, but to kind of really create an atmosphere and to create emotion, it's very difficult. So I designed.
So when you get Minecraft
within the environment, to kind of plant imagery into your mind and kind of make you feel certain things.
This is another of my favourite bits in the game, where you come along the edge of the sort of gully and you find hundreds of books, and it's one of the first times where most explicitly there's the suggestion that nothing you're seeing is real, because there's just no way that this can exist, and it's a really amazing, uncanny moment. But it works, I think, for me, because you just go, I don't understand it, but it's lodged somewhere in my head, and I can't get rid of it, and I can't unsee this. And I think for me, like in terms of my
the deluxe edition of Call of Duty World War II is only $80 now.
Burrows cut up and things like that going on. But it comes to the kind of books that I really love, that like Roadside Picnic, or the other one by the Strugatskys as well, I absolutely love, is The Ugly Swans. That's just full of these images.
Put you on the corner and get that much, right?
I have no idea what's going on here, but I can't shake it. It's just got its hooks in me, and I think more recently you've got books like Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation does this so well, where nothing is understandable, but you feel the logic, but you can't understand the logic, but you feel like the logic's there. And that, I think, is a really powerful thing that games are so good at doing, of creating these things. And I think where a lot of game writing for me becomes kind of the wheels fall off it, is that they have these amazing ideas and then suddenly there's this huge rush of going,
yeah, she likes having small things in her hands.
All the tips of the iceberg, which are really interesting, but now we're going to show you the whole iceberg. And actually, that's never that satisfactory as a player, because it robs the mystery. I think the best game...
Every time you get to it, she thinks about you.
in the game is the radio mass. And the soundscapes that I wrote for the game are really tied into this idea. So it's the
yeah, well, she has to have something small in her hands, get it?
They're so broken down, they're so manipulated, and it really is supposed to represent the inner state of the protagonist at this point. It's that fractured understanding.
That's right.
So it kind of works on two levels, actually. We have the narrator who's trying to understand the journey.
That's right, Bits.
And we also have the audience's journey and their struggle for comprehension to understand what's going on in the game. So this distortion, this breaking down, this fragmented, kind of tortured sound really ties into the idea of the radio mast and the idea.
At least I don't have to worry about having a penis in my butt
the game
at
is
night.
trying to communicate something to you. The narrator's trying to tell you something, but it's so difficult to understand what that is.
Oh God.